Hello Internet, this is Daniel, Driving and Dragons. Today, we're talking about Session Zero. Now, I come from the era of there's no, what the heck is Session Zero? So, it really wasn't that, but back in the day, we predominantly played with our friends. If you got introduced into Dungeons and Dragons or Call of Cthulhu or any other role-playing game, typically what happened is you had an older brother or a friend with an older brother or something like that played Dungeons and Dragons, and you would get to start playing there, and then you'd bring your friends in, and you'd have your group of friends who were brought in, and some of them didn't particularly care for it, and they just kind of came by for movie night from there on out. But some of them would have a love for the game that goes beyond just being part of the group, and next thing you know, they're running around to comic book stores and all that kind of thing to find their next, find another game and another game and another game, and they're running out there testing out Cyberpunk and testing out Call of Cthulhu and testing out Traveler, and they get the Conan release when it comes out, and that's just, they embrace it entirely, and then everybody else kind of falls in the middle, and you kind of play it by ear, so to speak. And you didn't have to worry a lot about some of the other nonsense that goes on with the modern era, because the people you were playing with in general were already your friends. You already had similar interests, you already had similar senses of humor, things already kind of worked out, and the concept of this Session Zero really, at least as far as I've seen, is one of these more modern things. It's really something that we've done all along. It's just that it's kind of been formalized by a combination of the internet age, where we have a lot of people who are playing games together that's the only reason they came together. They never met each other outside of, I was trying to find a group, because the online community has allowed us to connect so much more easily. And from the professional game master scene, which we may as well call the professional DM scene, because there's not really a huge market for professional game masters outside of Dungeons and Dragons, just because it has such a massive part of the market share when it comes to people who want to play tabletop role-playing games. But it has an obvious core need to run Session Zero when you're talking about professional game masters. And that's not what I'm here to talk about. I'm not a professional game master. I have no desire to be a professional game master. And when I'm talking from the perspective of a hobbyist, where the GM is also a player and is there to have enjoyment, the same kind of enjoyment that the players are having, where it's all a collaborative effort, whether it's a hack and slash video game on tabletop, or it's a deep role-playing experience where we don't roll anything for several sessions because it's all role-played out and there's no need for skill checks and that sort of thing, or anything in between. It's because that's the kind of collaborative effort that we like to have fun with. And so I always approach things from that perspective. That being said, how do we take our Session Zero? I'm not big on a formal Session Zero. I'm just going to go out and say this. I don't particularly like Session Zero as a group. I see some advantages to it. By all means, prove me wrong in the comment section. I've seen some, like I said, I've seen some advantages to it. But generally, I like to do my stuff one-on-one. I like to have almost an interview with my player, particularly if it's not somebody that I've played with before who I'm inviting back to a game. With those players, it's just like, hey, here's what I'm looking at running. Is this something you're interested in? Come on and join us. But Session Zero for me is a lot of times interviewing somebody to see if they're going to be fit in our group and see if they would be somebody we'd like to have. And I generally break that up into three major points. I break it up into the personal compatibility, the game compatibility, and the life compatibility. I don't come out with a big fancy checklist about all your triggers and all your stuff that you feel bad about, and the stuff you want and the stuff you don't want, and the, what's my comfort level. No, I go to, if I have a player, I'll put it out there that I'm running a game. I'm running a particular type of game. For instance, I might say I'm running Cyberpunk 2020. We're running street punk kids in a corporate espionage mission. Street punk kids infiltrating a megacorp, and I need players. Or I'll say I'm running a Dungeons and Dragons game, 3.5 edition, player's handbook, races and classes only, and I'm running a custom homebrewed world campaign setting. I'm looking for this many players. And I'll interview the players. First thing I'm looking for is personal compatibility. Personal compatibility is going to be the things that you hear about why Session Zero is so important. Making sure you're going to be compatible with my group from a personal perspective. Not in game, not player, not what you're looking for. This is where I'm going to talk to you. Say, like, for instance, are you a politically sensitive individual? Because if you get in your feelings and want to go running around just raising hell because somebody happened to pop off about your sacred cow or, God forbid, disagree with you, you don't need to be in my group. You really don't. If you feel that you need to hammer, if your political preferences are that much of a part of your identity that you feel the need to wear them on your sleeve and constantly ram them down everybody's throat, you don't need to be at my table anyway. I'm not going to tolerate you as a GM, but I'm not going to let you kill my group because you have to push your agenda. Not going to happen. Same thing. If I can tell, if you're a jerk and you're one of those guys who likes to tell the stories about how he screwed up this campaign, or how he did something really stupid and it led to a TPK just because he thought it'd be funny or something like that, I can figure out pretty quick that you're not right for my super serious roleplay heavy campaign. Or you got this idea of how you can exploit this rule or that rule. I'm not going to bring a min-maxer into a game that's about personal character development and that sort of thing. Just like I'm not going to bring in a heavy roleplay character into some great epic space battle game where it's all going to be warfare and die rolls. So I'm looking at the personal compatibility at that point. Are you going to fit with my group? Are there any red flags that you and the other players are not going to get along? Second, I go into that phase of the game compatibility. This is where we're talking about how I'm running my game, what kind of homebrew rules I might use, how tightly I'm going to follow the rules as written in the book, what system we're using, what kind of characters we're going to play, how we're going to roll those characters, what we need in terms of backstory and that sort of thing, in general play style. Is it going to be more role play, less action? Is it going to be more action, less role play? Is it going to be a hack and slash dungeon crawl? Are we testing ourselves against something like a Tomb of Horrors module where it's all about testing the player and not the character, and it's designed to be a meat grinder? And we're going to find out if that's compatible with how you want to play your game, because if you're not going to enjoy it, I don't want you at the table anyway, and it's better to just get that out there in the open. I am going to take a quick side note here on that. Something I think is very important. A GM has to be somewhat malleable to his players. You have to be able to adapt and adjust your game and adjust your campaign to fit your characters. You may have to dumb down your puzzles because your puzzles seem obvious to you, but your party's just constantly getting stumped and they're sitting around playing with their die as they try to figure out what's going on, and you're losing people. You may have to make those adjustments. You may have to get grittier and more realistic, or lighten up and be more, a little bit more jovial or a little bit more loose. But there comes a time and a place where a GM has to have some steel in his backbone and really run the table. And that is, this is the game I'm running. If you don't want to play that game, hey, tell me, man, maybe next time. But don't go into a Session Zero and say, hey, I'm going to run a Pirates campaign. We're going to go like late 1700s style pirates. And we're going to have cannons, and we're going to have blunderbusses, and we're going to have ship battles. And then you got some, I don't really like guns in my D&D game. I think they kind of take away from everything. I don't really like gunpowder. It's like, okay, well, we're going to be medieval pirates now. Well, it's going to be like the Black Sword Coast and the Queen of the Black Coast with Conan. And then the next character's like, the naval thing sounds kind of stupid. I really wanted to play a desert raider or something like that. Next thing you know, it's like, all right, well, we're just going to be bandits in the desert. Next thing you know, your entire campaign has been screwed up. Everything you've looked to do, and now you're not enjoying it as a DM, because this great idea that you really wanted to work out, this thing you really wanted to try, doesn't happen because you've gone through 4 or 5 players, and each one of them you've had to capitulate to. So don't do that. Sit there in that second part and say, look, this is what I'm running. Be open to some adjustments. And if you have a long-standing group and you've talked to 3 or 4 of them and they're all not interested, maybe you do need to make a change. But when you're bringing in new players, this is what I'm running. If you don't like it, cool. I'll keep your name in mind for the next campaign. But this is where those homebrew rules come out. This is where we talk about the ups and downs of how we're going to run the game. Number 3 is the life compatibility. This is where we talk about, I'm going to play Saturday. I can play Saturdays and Sundays every other week. Is that something you can commit to, or is that something that works with you? Are Saturdays and Sundays good for you? Well, no, man. I really need like a weekday game. Well, I'm sorry, I can't do a weekday game. I'm the GM. If I'm not there, we're not going to have a game, and I play weekends. Or if I have a lot of situations where I can't tell right up until the last minute if I'm going to be able to play or not. Well, I'm sorry. I try to get my stuff. We play with adults who have jobs and lives, so you need to be able to commit 4 or 5 days in advance, barring an emergency, which is how we schedule our games. Is we say, Tuesday, I need a head count. And if I don't have my head count on Tuesday, we've got to push back to next week. And if you got a player who constantly can't commit to that, maybe he's got to go. But you set that expectation in that life compatibility section of that kind of session 0 interview. Now I'm going to touch on a couple of things real quick that are popular in session 0s. You'll see these in a lot of different videos. DM's Lair has a great video on it. I disagree with him on quite a bit about session 0, but these are maybe the best practices for you, and there's some things that I disagree with on them. Same thing with Bob World Builder and a few other great channels that have good either Dungeons and Dragons or role-playing in general content about session 0s. But for one, you'll hear people, we're going to roll our characters at session 0. No, we're not. Nothing is fun about sitting around rolling characters, particularly if you have to do it online. Now, in person, sometimes it can be there, and I do have a caveat to this where I say, if this is the first time, you got a lot of first-time players, and you need to be able to sit there to help them roll their characters, that can be a good thing where we're going to teach rolling our characters together. We're all going to work as a team on this so that everybody learns the system and learns how to roll their character. But in general, we're not there to roll our characters. I'm going to tell you, hey, here's the parameters. Come to me about what we're doing, and we've got somebody who's going to be this, somebody who's going to be that. Maybe find out what's going to fit in the group or not. I'm not super big on this. All right, we're going to make sure we build the perfect team to fill all the roles and everything. As much as I want it to be more organic and at my table, and I'll tell people that. If the group you met at the tavern that night to go fight the adventure may not be the perfectly balanced group of a rogue and a fighter and a cleric and a wizard with a support character. That may not be what you get. But we're not going to hide that information, but I want people to be able to play the different stuff they want. We're also not going to create backstories at the table. Yes, there is some potential where 2 players could kind of work something out together. They can still get together and do that on their own. it's not a backstory writing circle session. I'm going to give you some world information in part 2 about game compatibility, a little bit about what we're doing in our setting and how we're running things, and you can put your backstory together and get it to me so I can work it into the game. But we're not going to sit around and spend 3 hours on our Sunday writing up details of a backstory. Some people have time for that, some people don't. When they want to commit their time, they want to commit their time to playing. Which brings me to the fourth thing. We're not going to play at a session 0. I am not generally a fan of session 0 as a group, like I said. I want to do these in a 15 minutes where I sit with you. Where I tell you, I run a PG-13 game. Yeah, we talk about a lot of adult stuff. We cuss like sailors. We tend to have a pretty small, pretty weak filter when it comes to saying things that are off color or might be considered rude, but we're not here to listen to you, and I'm not going to role play the NPC, and I'm not here to listen to you and another player act out a dime store romance novel at the table. I mean, we're not interested in Fabio's firm abs and the magnificent breasts of your character. You can keep that in your own mind. We're there to play Dungeons and Dragons or Call of Cthulhu or whatever. Cthulhu is not interested in your character's boobs, and neither are the rest of the players at the table. There's tables for that. You're going to find that out when we start talking about that compatibility. So we're not going to play session 0. We're going to go through it all. We're going to bring the group together, and then we're going to play session 1. So that's kind of my thoughts on session 0. I do see some potential, especially with brand new players, of having a group session 0 for rolling characters. Generally, I don't like to do that. I want you to explore on your own. I want to be as surprised by your character as the other players are in a lot of ways. Maybe I know a little bit ahead of time so I can make some adjustments in the game. But to be perfectly honest, I think that's part of the fun of being a GM, is discovering along with the players. I mean, not on a game rule perspective. I mean, you're not going to whip out a Vorpal sword I didn't know about, especially because I didn't give you that much starting gold to begin with. But I want to explore your character with you, and I want to explore your character in that world. And I think that's important. And I think that when you're bringing in a new player, they really deserve that personal one-on-one attention, because I'm a lot less likely to miss a red flag if all I'm focused on is you. I'm a lot less likely to miss that, which means I can protect my group better. And B, I think it's just a lot more efficient, and it brings together more organic groups that can have a better time, and it can really help you very quickly weed out that player that's not going to work out. Because nothing sucks like, all right, I got 7 players together and I'm going to lose 4 of them at session 0, and then you 3, you guys kind of need to sit there till I get another few players together for another session 0, because my pitch wasn't clear enough to weed these people out, and we waited till we got everybody together in a group to do it. No. I'm going to interview each and every one of them. You're going to get your own personal session 0. If you think I'm wrong, put it in the comment section. If you think I'm right, put it in the comment section. Or if you just have a piece of information that maybe I haven't considered or discussed here, put it down below. I'd love to have the discussion, and I'll see you guys next time. Comment, hit the bell, all the fun YouTube stuff. I appreciate you stopping by.